Alright guys, well, welcome back to Rampant Lion Reviews once again, and we're joined by my good friend Thomas Hollendam from Thomas Opent. So as always, make sure you check out the link to his channel in the video description below. Lots of nice Dutch reviews, an English review once a week usually.
Well, a bit erratic these days because I've got so many English reviews to do because of so many American beers and reviews with you. So you know what, they'll just be there.
English reviews will just appear kind of randomly then, I guess. Today though, we have a little bit of a Belgian classic, I guess we could say, and this is one that you were very excited for.
Yeah, I've been having this one in the fridge for a year or two now. I think about 2 years, and I kept meaning to review it, and I figured, you know, that this is something that's great for your channel as well, because Straffe Hendrik, I don't think is very easily accessible in Sweden, is it?
Not this one. If you go to Copenhagen, you can get the quadruple and the tripel fairly easily, but I don't think I've ever seen this one. And maybe every so often, I think maybe every so often through Systembolaget, you will get the quadruple and the tripel as like a temporary one.
Yeah.
But it's it's a bit more difficult to get a hold of these. But yeah, I'm lucky because of Copenhagen in that sense. But yeah, I've heard of this one, but I've never seen it before.
Well, I've had an older vintage. I think it was 2016 at that point, and I drank that relatively fresh, within a year or maybe so. But this one has 3 years on it, so I'm very curious what it's going to do.
Yeah.
What that. Well, maybe we should say what the beer actually is, because.
So this one comes in at 9% ABV. It is a tripel. It's a special version of their tripel, where rather than using the normal brewing yeast for the bottle fermentation, what they've done is they've put a little bit of Brettanomyces into it for the secondary fermentation. Yeah. So yeah, I think Thomas is going to open this one because he's a bit of an expert in opening up the Brett beers. But to tell you a little bit about the history of the brewery then. I just pour it when we're going. Let's go for it in case it goes crazy. But yeah guys, the history of Brouwerij De Haalve. So Brouwerij De Haalve translates into English as the Half Moon Brewery. It's a family. Oh, geez, yeah, there we go.
See, that's what I meant.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, this is a family-owned brewery located in Bruges in Belgium, and the first mention of the brewery comes from 1564 when the city register already mentioned Brouwerij De Maan in the Valpijn Square. So, in 1856, Henry Leon Maes, I do apologise for these pronunciations because I'm not sure if they are Dutch, Flemish, or if they are French, so I might mix that up a little bit. But in 1856, Henry Leon Maes became the owner of this building, with the help of his uncle Petrus Johannes Maes, the brewery was converted into a modern operation and it became known as Brouwerij De Haalve Maan. So Henry's sons Henry and Archer took over the brewery in 1867, and they erected a malt house and brewed some English style beers such as stouts and pale ales, and they continued to increase their production until the 1880s. In 1905 though, both Henry and Archer died at a young age, and their widows continued the breweries until one of their sons, Henry, again took over in 1919. And he went to Germany to study brewing, and then he introduced German styles of beer to the brewery, and he invested in refrigeration for the low fermentation to produce bocks and lagers. And in the 1930s, the brewery were also producing a range of soft drinks as well, apparently. But of course, then came the Second World War, and everything went a bit crazy, as it did in Europe at that time. But in 1946, they took over Brouwerij Bruges Zeehaven, which gave them a larger brewing complex. So, Henry number 4 took over the brewery during the 1950s, and then they began to experience major growth, but the brewery began to suffer in the 1970s, as many breweries did in Belgium at that time, and this was due to kind of changes in the consumer market. I think just greater demand for lagers and stuff like this, basically. But in 1981, Henry started working with his daughter Veronique, I think we should say. But they brewed a high fermentation beer to mark the unveiling of the statue of St. Arnold in the city, who was the patron saint of brewers, and this beer was called Straffe Hendrik to pay homage to the different generations of Henry Maes who had run the brewery over the years. But Brouwerij Riva took over the brand and trading of the Straffe Hendrik beers in 1988. And then over time the production in Bruges was gradually reduced, and then eventually it completely moved to Dentichem in 2002. So Veronique's son Xavier Van Aster resurrected the brewery and launched the Bruges Zot beers, which have proved to be very, very popular. Those are the ones with the little jester guy on them, aren't they? But after this, the Liefmans Brewery in Dentichem filed for bankruptcy in 2007, and the ownership of the Straffe Hendrik brand was then owned by Duvel Murghat, but a deal was concluded in 2008 to purchase the brand, and they started brewing the original Straffe Hendrik Tripel, and then a little bit later the Quadrupel, was introduced again in 2010, and this was the same year that the brewery opened their bottling and logistics centre at Vagelwater Business Park. So still based in the Bruges area as far as I can understand. So that's a kind of brief history of Straffe Hendrik.
Wasn't it, by the way, the Straffe Hendrik, the Haalve Maan brewery, the thing with the beer line through the city, because the transport of the beer from one point of the city to the other, they did this a few years ago, and having trucks go through the entire city was such a hassle that they did a sort of a line,
like a conveyor belt thing.
No, like a sewer line, not sewer line, water line,
a pipeline.
Pipeline.
Oh.
So they could get beer from the brewery to the
pubs and stuff.
Yeah, I think that was how Haalve Maan.
I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I've not heard of that before.
I could quickly Google that, by the way, because now I'm curious if that was Haalve Maan. Oh, I can quickly Google that, because if that's true, that's of course a lot of fun, an interesting fact.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. So yeah, guys, this is my second Haalve Maan review here on the channel. I think the first one I did was the quadrupel. I still need to review the tripel for you, and I think I can get that in Copenhagen. And either that or Thomas, as I say, is going to arrange a Belgian box and a Dutch box for me at some point. So if I can't find it, Thomas will get it to us.
Yeah. It was, by the way, Haalve Maan. They actually have a pipeline to transport the beer through the city.
Yeah, because Bruges is like really windy and everything from what I remember.
Google all the details. Just if you go like beer pipeline Haalve Maan, you'll find it. Bruges, whatever, you'll find it. It's an interesting read. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll need to edit the notes, the brewery notes for the next the Haalve Maan video thing, because I had no idea about that. Yeah. But yeah, okay. Let's have a look at this one then. So as we said, this is a tripel, 9% tripel. That's one of the more ambery tripels, actually.
Definitely. I was thinking sort of like a candied orange.
Yeah. This is very much almost like West Coast IPA type colour, actually. Very kind of rich ambery colour. You can see the head. I wasn't paying so much attention to the head, but you can see we've got about 100 mils each, roughly.
Give or take.
Yeah. So we've got a solid finger of head on this one. It's quite a creamy coloured head rather than being perfect white. Carbonation, as you get with Belgian beers, quite often bottle conditioned, blah blah blah. There is quite an active carbonation to this one.
I think this glass does have a little bit of an agitator in it, but a small one. I think they have these three
probably down in the little stem thing. Yeah, these are lovely glasses though. Actually, I really like these.
If you're noticing and tasting, sharing beer is amazing.
Yeah, they're very very nice actually. But yeah, impressive appearance. This one definitely one of the more ambery coloured tripels I've had. So let's take a look at the aroma then.
Let's go.
Nothing overly surprising about the appearance, but yeah. Ooh, that smells very nice. First thing I'm noticing about this one is it actually comes across as very candied. So guys, remember, with tripels and quadrupels, one of the tricks, I don't know if they do it with blondes and doubles and stuff, but one of the tricks that they often use with these beers to get them to the higher alcohol stage is to put brewing sugar or candy sugar or something like this in them. That's why the Belgian beers are usually quite high alcohol, but they don't have as thick a mouthfeel as you're going to get from some of the American style beers and things like that. Like adding these kind of candied sugar things to them is a little bit of a trick that they use here, but I think it works very very well, we have to say.
There is a definite candied sugar note in there. It's also interesting to know that although you definitely get the Brett character, of course, you do still get the original brewer's yeast as well. You can still get that it's a triple. And
this is a really interesting one for me because it feels like it's got two edges to it, if you like. It feels on one hand like it's quite farmhousey, and you get that grainy, yeasty, brown bready sort of thing to it. It's not a sweet brown bread; it's more like a grainy kind of wholemeally type bread. Not, as I say, not like a German sweet rye bread sort of thing. Yeah. It's got a few kind of woody notes to it for me.
It's not like barrel aged oak wood, but sort of more like a drying.
Like a soft woody type thing,
soft woody.
Almost like a slightly spicy cedar wood or something.
That's a good one. Yeah. No, I was thinking sandalwood for some reason, but I see what you mean with the cedar wood as well. I think that's sort of
see work.
There's a bit of there's definitely a bit of a funky farmhouse character to it. It has a bit of that soft manure note in the back and everything, that horse blankety, whatever you want. But even though it's Brettanomyces, don't compare this in any way with a Gurza, a Lambic. It's on a whole different level. Where the beer was from day one, of course, bombarded in this big cool ship with Brettanomyces and nothing else. This is just a small addition for that finishing touch. And one of the nice things about this is if you find this one, a 2020 vintage, buy 6 or 12, drink one now, Drink one 6 months from now. Try it with fresher versions when they come out, but also try one 5 years from now.
Yeah.
That's what that bread does, because it takes away all that sugar, that brewing sugar, just eats everything away, and you get a much more dry result.
Yeah, it's sort of an aging project thing.
Yeah.
I wish that I had space to do that with some beers, but then again, it's one of these things. There's so many beers out there these days. I'm just kind of like, I'm quite happy to try one of these beers once without bothering about the vintage so much. But yeah, so yeah, I think for me the thing that I'm finding with the sourness out of this one, I think the kind of the sort of citricy note you get out of this, there is a bit of that lemony grassy sort of thing, but I find the sort of citricy note in this quite appley. I find the citric.
It's got a bit of that green apple,
yeah.
Not in an infected kind of way that you have with some of those barrel aged beers, but like the green apple, but like crisp, fresh. I forgot the name of the very bright green, not Golden Delicious. There's another very bright Granny Smith. Granny Smith, like that very crisp, green, fresh.
Yeah, it's almost just got a wee touch of a slightly appley cider element to it. You get that level of acidity out of this one.
And I don't know if you've ever had an apple cider vinegar. If you've ever worked with that, I like to use it with some dressings in cooking and every now and then. It has that apple cider vinegar thingy, so that's nice and crisp and fresh with a little bit of fruity note.
Ah, okay. So yeah, no, definitely some interesting things there. I find that for me, that's the citricy side of this beer. I get a little touch of an almost. I want to say there's a wee tiny bit of lime in this. There's pears. There's a little bit of lime. For me, again, we're getting a little. There is a wee bit of that sultana type note under there. There is a little bit of that dried sultana quality there. But for me, good little bit of grassiness. Little touch of. I think there is a wee bit of a floral, kind of earthy herb.
I'm getting an earthy. Dry, earthy soil, not that wet earth, that dry earth.
That'll be
partly
the yeast in this.
Exactly, that's that yeasty, that's that farmhousey, dry, where you're rooting through dry dirt and you're getting that dust and your aroma up and you smell that dry dirt, that earthy.
Yeah.
With, as again, especially, it sounds so weird, especially that manure character again. It's in there. Yeah,
definitely.
And I wonder if this in a fresher form would have that same level of manure, farmhouse, dry. I wonder if that would be a lot less. I can't remember from last time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very nice. It's very nice that I like that about it. The brown sugars, I think, does have a bit of a sweet caramel to it, but it definitely has a little bit of that kind of I think it's more of a kind of caramelly wafery thing again that you're getting out of this. I think definitely.
That is that. Mostly for me on the malty side, I'm getting that bready. The yeasty, yeasty bready thing that you get from a normal triple.
Yeah, it's quite a sort of wheaty. It's almost not a wheaty bread. It's more like a kind of almost like a crisp white bread you're getting out of this one, like a fresh bread loaf.
Yeah, and then you still get the yeasty smell. You still get that warm, doughy, yeasty everything, but not in the very heavy brown bread. Like you said, more of that white bread. And it could be me, but maybe it's just power of suggestion because of that colour. But I'm getting a wee bit of a sort of like a candied orange thing. You mentioned that caramelly brown sugar note, but I'm getting sort of like a caramelly candied orange.
See, I find this one a little bit more peary. I could see if you'd said apricot, I could see that. I could see a bit of an apricot.
Apricot's a good one. But like I said, it could be a little bit of power of suggestion. You always have that when you see a colour.
Yeah, but I think we can agree on that. The aroma's very nice. I think there is a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, a bit of that candied brown sugar. Maybe caramel. I think I was a bit wrong when I said caramel a moment ago. I think it's more of a wafery, biscuity brown sugar that you get out of this, and that makes sense when it's sort of candy sugar that they'll put in these things.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, the aroma of this is very, very nice and very, very funky. I'd be curious to smell this next to a brand new one and see how much see how much of this is developed, because I would suspect that some of the appley sharpness that comes out of this, and probably the way the yeastiness kind of, because the brown sugars take a back seat in this, and normally you'd expect those to be fairly forward in a triple. I think that's probably what the aging effect on this
From what I remember of the triple we had a few weeks ago, the normal one, it was much sweeter than this in all regards, and especially with that brown sugary component what you were talking about. But it is, you do definitely still get a triple. Yeah, it is a triple. You can tell it has that slightly boozy, not boozy, warming alcohol thing that you get from a good higher ABV triple. without it being too bothersome. It's not. I said boozy. When I say boozy here, I don't mean that sharp boozy. I mean that warming booze. When you have like a good scotch or whatever, and you feel the warmth in your chest, right? Nothing sharp. That warming sensation. You can still smell that it is that kind of triple, but that dryness, that freshness, that crispness that the Brettanomyces has introduced after 3 years does transform it. And I'm curious if I'm going to like this or not. I love the aroma, but I'm kind of hesitant about tasting it because I have a weird suspicion it might not taste as good as it smells. Well, but that could just be.
We'll find out then, shall we? We'll find out.
We
so, thank you for this one, Thomas. This is one of Thomas's beers that's been sitting there for a while. So, yeah, this one, the Brouwerij De Haalve Straffe Hendrik Wild 2017?
2017 vintage.
2017 vintage. Skål, Slager, Prost. It says Santé as well because it's a Belgian beer.
Oh.
Ooh. I like that.
Definitely. It's very unique.
Yeah,
there's nothing that is confused.
Yeah, there's nothing you can really compare that to, but I do like this. Actually.
At one point, I'm like, I'll be honest. The first sip, I was like, oh, I don't like it. The first impression was, I'm not sure I like this. Then I was like, oh no, I like this, and now I'm going back to what. Okay, there's a sort of bitterness in here. Are you gonna laugh at me, or you're gonna go like, yeah, I get it. For some weird reason, I'm reminded of that sort of lingering sensation in your mouth after you've had bile in your mouth.
No.
And that's not a good thing, but it's a weird thing, and I'm not really sure yet if I like it.
It's like that. It's almost like a very, very charred, very spicy, woody note. That's what I get, because I think I know what you're talking about there.
I get that char. I do.
I get that char. This one for me, the base of this beer is very woody, and it's almost very char and spicy and dry.
There is a weird charness in there, and the funny thing is, there is at no point has this beer seen anything relating to char. But that is exactly that bitterness. That's a good one. That bitterness now. And you mentioned that char reminds me of if you've ever had like a pork where the edges were too burned, not crispy burnt, but really burnt. That sort of charry, that lingering bitterness that you have from that black part. It's
almost like cedar wood.
It is very woody.
Yeah, it's very cedar woody, this kind of thing. Maybe there are other woods you can compare it to, but my experience with sakes, you get cedar wood, cedar barrel aged sakes, and the way that the woodiness comes out in this really reminds me of those.
We just mentioned that we wanted to do some stouts as well. We're going to need a heavy palate cleanser after this.
Oh yeah.
We might actually just want to have dinner first and then do the stouts, because this is definitely going to linger for a while, and it's going to impart flavour to everything, because this it's potent, but not.
Well, it is, yeah. I think it's a lot harder in the flavour. You can tell from the aroma this is a Tripel, but I think this is a lot harder in the flavour. If you were blind tasting this, I don't think I would pick up that this is a Tripel.
No, in the aroma, if somebody had given me this in taste without sniffing it, I wouldn't have gotten triple. The aroma says triple, but the flavour profile is the only thing I might be getting there is a little bit of that.
Almost comes across like it's obviously not as sharp and stuff as a lambic.
No, but
it's got some of the same characteristics that you get from the lambic if they weren't so sharp, if you like.
Yeah. The thing that I'm still getting a bit from that triple character that I have in some triples anyway is a sort of that fruity sweetness. A little bit of that fruity sweetness is lingering, but only like in the distance, and that's the only thing that I could. But all the other very typical yeasty aromas, those fruity esters, those sort of clovey banana things that you can get in those triples, that typical Belgian yeast. Is gone.
I mean, that's one of the things I would want to say about this beer. I find this a very straight shooter. I find this a real straight shooter just now. Not the most complex, but everything in it. It's one of these ones that strikes me as being just nice and drinkable, almost. And for 9%, I mean, that's the thing with the Belgian beers. For 9%, some of these are stupidly drinkable.
Would you have guessed? Because I did have the 9% ABV triple, the normal one, like a week or two ago in a live stream. Again, with blind tasting, would you have guessed that this was 9% ABV? Because with the normal triple, I would. But with this one, the dryness takes away that cloying sweetness of a higher ABV away.
I don't know.
I don't think I would have guessed. 9%.
I don't know if I would have gone about 9. I would have guessed that this is maybe about 7, 8.
Exactly.
I don't think I would have gone as high as 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. This
which makes it tricky.
I'd love to try a fresh one of these as well. I have to say.
I think it might be a bit past its prime. I think this would have been nicer a year ago, where the triple character could have been a bit more forward in the flavour. Yeah,
because I suppose the thing that's going to happen in this as well is if you've got these candied sugars and things inside it, the yeast is going to eat up that sugar, isn't it? That's what's That's literally what's happening in this. The sugar's being eaten up by the yeast. So that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? When you just think about it, it does make sense. But yeah, let's do the flavour.
Yeah, let's go.
We should do that. Let's do that.
But it's actually kind of funny though that we're doing that, because that means even if you like it or not, it's a conversation piece.
Yeah, it is definitely. It's a quirky one. This, and I like this. I like having beers like this that make you think.
Agreed.
So for me, base of the beer, middle third your palate, back third your palate. That spicy kind of cedar wood, dry kind of thing. That's the backbone of this beer for me. If you go into the back third your palate, there is a little bit of that bready, yeasty kind of thing. It comes across as quite a grainy, brown bready, bread crusty sort of thing. If you go a little bit further forward into the middle third of your palate, I think you can feel that breadiness just thin down a little bit, but it's still the same type of flavour. I think when you go further into the aftertaste with this one, you've seen how long it was since I took a sip of this. I think you do get a little bit of brown sugar develops out of this one. It's got a little bit of it's got a wee bit of that butter candy Werther's Original type thing. You do get a little bit, for me there is a wee bit of a caramelly wafer sort of thing. A little bit like that. There is a little bit of that.
And I'm getting a little bit more floral notes now as well. There's some floral notes coming through. It is. We just said it isn't that complex.
I think we're telling lies, maybe. I
think the more that I think about it, and the more you let it develop,
this is one of these aftertaste beers. This is an aftertaste beer, really.
Was it one of the beers we reviewed for your channel? Was it that double IPA? Were we talking about that as well? That when you take some time, I think that was.
Yeah, I think you have to you have to let the beer open up a little bit, definitely.
And not just open up in the glass, but also in the finish. There's a lot of beers that you take a sip, you wait 20 seconds, you take a sip, you wait 10 seconds, you take a sip. You might really want to give it 2 or 3 minutes before you take another sip and let that finish develop, because there's more happening now.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, for me, I think it really means I find this quite a grainy, woody, spicy beer overall.
Yeah.
But in the middle of that palate, you are going to get a little bit of caramel, like a sort of caramel wafery sort of thing. You're going to get a little bit of biscuit, McVitie's digestive, and I think on top of that, it sits on top of that grainy, woody, bready sort of thing that's going on. The malty side of this beer, I think the malty and yeasty side of this beer comes across really quite nicely. I don't think there's too much more to say about it other than what we've
There's
said
no
here.
Hoppy character here, whatever.
Yeah.
The bitterness that I'm getting is that yeasty bitterness.
I think so.
This is definitely one of the reasons why. By the way, that's what we will try this. We could try this right now. We could try it after the review, just for the fun. We had this topic. This discussion about during your Duvel premiere about adding the yeast deposit in the beer. Yes or no? Beer geeks discuss this. The brewers discuss this. Some say never ever do it. There are breweries out there that basically say don't pour it in there. The Tripel from Haalve Maan, the normal one, the Straffe Hendrik, I wouldn't, because I find that the yeast deposit there has too much of a bitterness and really destroys that sweet triple character. And I wonder if the Brett character in this yeast.
Well, let's finish off it with this then, and then we'll do it. So, I think I'm not sure I would agree necessarily that there's no hop character to this. I think there's a little bit left. I get a little bit of earthiness in the back corner of the palate. And it's very lingering. I mean, when hops break down, it's a sort of oniony, earthy, herbally sort of thing that they leave. I do get a little bit of that. I think I get a little bit of that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if that's from the yeast or from the hop.
That's the difficult thing with Belgian beers sometimes.
Exactly.
To tell. That's one of the difficult things to tell. Where exactly?
I'm getting the same thing, but I'm thinking it's the yeast character. It could be the hop.
I mean, this is beers from 2017. I think it's quite likely that you're right. I think you're quite likely.
You are making me doubt now.
Yeah. See, I think you're always going to get some lingering of the hops. You're always. I think it could be both. Let's just say it's
both.
I think it's probably both. I think it's probably both to a degree. On the front curve of your palate, this is where the sort of acidity, the sourness of the beer comes out. So for me, I get a little. It might be placebo just because it's you're used to having grassiness there. I do get a little bit of a grassy, zesty note.
There is definitely, and I agree with you what you said earlier. For the if you know, if you've tried both, it's definitely more of a lime zestiness than lemon zestiness.
Yeah, it's more of a limey grassiness.
It's not that lemony zest. It's lime.
I would say that the sort of the acidity out of this thing, because you'll get the acidity just behind that, and it is again, it's a sort of appley, green appley sort of acidity you get with this. On that front third of your palate, I do get a little bit of there is a wee bit of a kind of peary note for me again. You've got the apples. You've got a little bit of the limey character as well. I think apples, pears, limes. I don't get the apricot really that I was picking up in the aroma. Nah. I don't get that.
There was a little bit of when we were talking about that. You suggested apricot. I was like, yeah, okay, but now, no. It's mostly that crisp apple pear. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think now we do this. Yeah.
Yeah, you deposit it. You can immediately see a colour and a haze change there. It definitely went a shade or two darker and a lot hazier. There's a big yeast deposit in that bottle.
Oh, there we go. Getting 4
Yeah,
minutes.
go for it. Yeah, that's it. Let's just leave it at that.
There's not actually. I don't think. No, that's the yeast is.
That's all of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am second round tasting then. Oh yeah, look at this now. Look at that. That's like almost New England level haze.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's a lot more bready and brown bready and stuff, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, the aroma I think is the same. It's a lot more.
I'm getting a lot more the brown bread. Yeah, but I'm getting a lot more of that sharp. Again, it's a weird comparison, but sort of that sharp, barley bitterness from the yeast. That's what I'm getting a lot as well.
Yeah.
There's a debate that some people say you can't smell bitterness. You only smell bitterness because you've tasted it, and then when you...
It's like Pilsner malt. You can smell Pilsner malt, but you can't. It doesn't have such of a flavour.
No,
it's
exactly.
a mouthfeel thing. Yeah.
You can't smell bitterness, but you've had something. You've tasted things that have a certain amount of bitterness, and then when you smell it, you're like, oh, that reminds me of, and then you think it smells bitter, but I do get a heavier bitter.
Let's talk about the I think distinctly more woody. I think there's more woodiness to this. There's more breadiness in the aroma. I would stick with that. Let's look at the flavour of this one then now.
Well, that's peculiar. Because suddenly now I'm getting more of that sweet triple character. Is that me or?
I get a little bit of it. It comes across as more. It's definitely more bready, this beer now. It's a lot more bready and a lot more doughy and yeasty. And in fairness, I think you do get a kind of more sort of, you get a bit more of that butter candy Werther's original thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting, this one.
And that's for me, is that sweet triple character.
Yeah, it really takes, when you add the yeast, it's odd this, because when you add the yeasty sediment into it, it takes away a good chunk of the bitterness.
And I expected it to be more. So for the normal version of the triple, I would say don't add the yeast deposit. For this one, I would dare say definitely do, but do it gradually. Don't try first without.
Try it without, and then drink half the beer without, then drink the other half with it. That's what I would say.
There's a soft medicinal note here for me.
It's a bit phenolic, isn't it?
Bit phenolic. Reminds me of. Have you ever had that when you want to swallow an aspirin and it goes wrong, or paracetamol, and it sort of lingers in your mouth a little bit and it gets a bit soggy? And you get that residue in your mouth of the paracetamol, that sort of phenolic, medicinal, bitter note. It's an interesting beer.
I like this. I definitely do. This has been a nice one to review for sure. But I think definitely with the yeast, more bready, the spiciness, the woody character that I was talking about. That you can still get that underneath when it dries out a little bit in the middle of the palate. You still get that, but distinctly more bready, doughy, and you get more of this kind of butter candy type thing. I think otherwise the fruitiness kind of smoothens out a little bit as well, but still green apple, still a limey kind of grassiness in there. I think it's the middle of your palate, the middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate that will smooth out and thicken out in this. I think that's fair.
All in all, it's not what I hoped it would be, but I am enjoying it.
Yeah.
I had expected something else because I had a fresher one at some point.
See, that's one of the things. You're more familiar with these than I am, so for me I was just this is cool, let's try it. So for me For me, I think you go into this one with a more experienced analysis, whereas I go in for a. You go into it with a more experienced frame of reference, whereas I go into it, it's just like, oh, this is cool, you know.
This is a fun beer.
I like
mostly it's a fun beer to try. Even if you don't like it, it's a fun beer to try to build up your frame of references for tasting and nosing beers.
Yeah,
it's a great addition to your catalogue of reviews.
I think so.
Absolutely.
I definitely want to do a solo review. I think of a fresh one as well.
Well, if you can't find it in Sweden, I'll do my best, because lately I haven't seen this around as much as I used to. But I can keep an eye out.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool to do a solo of a fresh one of this, having had a vintage one.
We're about to go into the second part of the show. I don't know if you want to.
All right, well, we'll just.
It'll be fine.
Then.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, mouthfeel then. Mouthfeel.
Yeah.
I think mid-bodied. I think this is right in the middle of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Maybe towards the lighter end of mid-bodied, but I've always found sour beers a little bit lighter. It's not sour in that sense. It's just
no. That's a good point, by the way, for people who expect a lot of sourness. Since it's a breaded beer, a wild beer, people expect a lot of sourness. I find it's softly acidic, and
softly
that's
sour.
it. Not aggressively sour, not puckering, not
quite smooth, but a little bit spicy, I would say. I would describe it, like I say, as a straight up mid-bodied beer. Carbonation is a lot smoother than you get the impression that it's going to be. IBUs, I think this is about 30-ish. I think it's somewhere around that. But the question is 30. It's difficult to say, to be honest.
Yeah,
because
I find it difficult to gauge with this one. Part of me wants to go maybe a little bit lower than 30. Part of me wants to say it might be hitting 40. Because it's a bit all over the place.
And it's the spiciness, and it's like you're like, where does the spiciness from the woody side of the beer end, and then where does the bitterness from the yeast and the hop residue in there, where does that end? So yeah, I think it's difficult. I think 30 is a safe bet. 25 or 30.
30. Yeah.
25-30 is a safe bet for this. Malty, yeasty side of the beer, for me, without the sediment, quite almost a little touch spicy and a little touch bitter. With the sediment, quite smooth. Does develop on both sides. It does develop a little bit of sweetness later on. It's a little bit of a grainy, biscuity sweetness. But yeah, nice little bit on the fruity side of things. It's got a little touch of acidity to it, a little bit juicy, and I think a little bit of limey character in there as well. So yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of round off on this one. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It's like, again, it's not what I thought it would be, but it's definitely a very interesting beer. It's also a very nice, gentle sipper.
Yeah.
Just taking nice little sips, while a normal triple is one you could almost quaff, so to say. I find this one of, just like I said, one of the most interesting beers that I've reviewed in quite a while, quite a while. Maybe not the best beer I've had in quite a while, maybe not the most complex beer I've had in quite a while, but definitely one of the most interesting.
Definitely one that makes you think, and that's what we like after 2,400 odd reviews, definitely. So Thomas, thank you for donating this one, I guess we could say.
You're quite welcome.
This was a really interesting one. I enjoy this. I enjoy reviewing with Thomas. It's good to bounce the ideas off each other. So yeah, hopefully.
Just ideas though.
Sometimes. This one was a 2017 vintage of the Straffe Hendrik Wild from Brouwerij De Haalve in Bruges, down in Belgium, and I really enjoyed this one. So, like I said earlier, make sure that you subscribe to Thomas's channel, Thomas Opent. You'll find the link to that in the video description below.
I shall give you plenty of hugs if you do. Corona safe hugs.
Corona safe bums. But yes, we'll make sure you show Thomas some love. English reviews come just kind of whenever, and a lot of Dutch reviews for those of you who are Flemish or Dutch
subtitles
speakers.
Are there as well, the auto-generated ones. So I've heard that.
Those can be fun.
Matt said that they're hilarious.
Oh yeah, they are quite fun. Yeah. You can check those out, and you can check out my other Straffe Hendrik reviews. I think you've got a couple of Straffe Hendriks, have you?
I think the most. They were in live streams. You can find them on the channel again. I did 1 or 2 in live streams. The triple, the quad. Yeah, so go for it. Yeah, so as I say, check out Thomas's channel. Check out my channel. You can look at the Belgian playlist for the other Belgian beer reviews. Probably this one will go in there as well. But I've got a separate playlist for the collaboration reviews, and then my regular reviews, my solo ones. Are there as well. But yeah, this was a really, really nice beer, and again, thank you to Thomas for 1, being here, and 2, donating this beer to my channel. So yeah, you're quite welcome,
awesome.
mate.
Alright, well guys, we'll sign off there. Thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Slange, Ska, Proust, Santé. Check out this one if you get the chance, and hopefully in the future you'll see a sort of solo review of a fresh one. I think that would be quite cool. Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.